I was just sending greetings to my sorors. And of course, those of us, I must say, because otherwise AKAs would get me, those of us who know our Delta history know that AKAs are the mothers of us all. And that's quite true. And we're here in Toledo, and of course, we're very close to the home of a woman who is very dear to my heart, and I've been talking about her a lot because I spent a lot of time lately in her area. She's from Detroit, of course, Lillian Bimbo. And it is always such a pleasure. Lillian used to say that all the time, used to drive the Deltas nuts, because she would always point out, you know, where else are you going to find 21 women unless they're already organized? But I did want to, that's true. And I think it was good because, and this is not to do Delta history, but one of the reasons that Delta Sigma Theta became what it is that we wanted to participate in the suffragette march, and the other people didn't feel that was what the direction they wanted to take. And I think from that point on, because as you know, Delta did do that, and we participated in the silent march in Washington, which was very, very important. And we have been committed in, not that others have not, but we have been committed to public service. And public service is very important, and I'm very proud of what we do. But I am proud of the Black Greek movement, because we're sitting at a time that almost anything that Black people do besides shut up and die, it gets criticized. And so, well, that's quite true. And I know that the Black Greek movement is important in all of its aspects, whether it's the Omegas, whether it's the Kappas, the Alphas, whether it's AKAs, whether it's Zetas, or wherever we are. The Black Group movement represents educated, and that's not always degreed, but educated, civilized commitment to sisterhood. And that is not just, And we know that that's important. It's not just the pink and the green, it's not just the crimson and cream, and it's not just what the men do, but it's the fact that our community is at this point demanding the best of all of us. I do not bring uncheerful greetings today. I'm not in a particularly bad mood, and I'm not, you know, and some days you are, you know, you're in a really, you know, no good mood. But I just have a bad head cold, and I can't shake it, and I think I can't shake because I can't stay home long enough to get rid of it. And what do they say, Wichita line, I know I need a small vacation. I know I do, but I definitely did not want to not be here. But I do worry sometimes, and I was reading The Blade, and I don't think of myself as controversial, I tell you. I don't. I mean, I always think of what I say as just being so normal, you know. And we were talking about Tupac, because that's what started, because I dedicated the love poems to Tupac Shakur, and I did that for a reason. One is my heart was broken, and I said that literally. It's not that I'm a rap fan. I'm 53 years old, you know. No, I mean, it's all you can do to hear what they're saying. If you're, it's true. It's true. But they have a right to say it. And I had become very disenchanted with a woman whom I've known and who you know, C. Dolores Tucker. I was very disenchanted when I remember C. Dolores went down to Congress to testify against rap, and I was thinking, what the hell is wrong with you? If you don't want, there's no other way to put that. If you don't want to listen to rap, you know what you can do? Turn off your radio. You don't have to buy the CDs. But if you don't like what these boys are saying, they don't like the life they're leading. And that's all Tupac was saying. Look at this mess that my life is. Look at the choices that you've taken away from me. And I'll tell you why else I admired that young man. Because he could have escaped. He made enough money. He could have gone on and booked on out. And he said, as he said in one of his CDs, for my niggas, I will stay there. And I will try to do what I can to do to make it better. And everybody wants to make that somehow bad. And yet we turn around. This is why it's so hard to be black. And I know for those of you who are not, maybe you're not going to understand. But you just be black. You just wake up one morning, you black. Okay? Okay, no problem. And you say to yourself, now this is what's hard. You say to yourself, gee golly, I'm talented. What I'll do is use this talent to make some money for myself, start a foundation so that I can help people like me, which Tupac has done, and I will stay in the community. And everybody said, what's wrong with you? If on the other hand, you wake up one morning and you say, well, I'm black and I'm talented, and what I'll do is I will take my talent, make some money, and I'll leave. Then everybody say, what's wrong with you? If you're a black boy and you're talented athletically, and you can bounce the ball and stuff it in or whatever they do, or you can block or whatever it is that they do, or you can hit a baseball like Ken Griffey Jr., then everybody says to you, how come you don't stay in school? But if you're a white boy like Andre Agassi or Pete Sampras, if you went to school for another 30 years, you might make kindergarten. Nobody says, am I wrong or what? No, we don't talk about that. Tiger Woods signs a $64 million contract, and everybody said, yeah, he signs a $64 million contract, but what about his education? Gary Player's not educated. Show me a golfer that makes sense. No. But nobody says anything about that. You look at those little dumb gymnasts running around on ice skates all the time. Nobody says anything about that. But if you just colored, all of a sudden you're supposed to do a PhD, you're supposed to make millions of dollars, you're supposed to marry your high school sweetheart, you're supposed to live in the community but have a home outside. What are you supposed to do in order to make people say to you and your black behind, well done? What do you have to do? Because it's too hard. I don't know how else to say it. It's too hard because all you're trying to do is what you see in front of you. All you're trying to do, in the words of that young warrior who was just cut down, and it does just have to break everybody's heart, all you try to do is keep it real. That's all he did. Now somebody's going to tell me, which I will not buy into it, somebody's going to tell me there's some kind of East Coast, West Coast thing, and these black people are just kind of shooting themselves up, and I'm not going to buy into that. I didn't buy into it when Tupac was murdered, and I surely will not buy into it now that Biggie Smalls is dead. We know that something else is happening because we recognize that rap is a billion-dollar industry. We recognize that there's a lot of money, and all the people bitching about rap will put it on to sell their shoes, will put it on to sell their TV shows, will put it on to sell their music. It's not the rap, but Langston Hughes said that a long time ago. You've taken my blues and gone, and you put it on Broadway and swing Mikados. Langston Hughes talked about that. It's not the music, it's the people who are creating it. And we have to be fair about that. It's not the music. Some of you all say, well, I don't like Miss Giovanni, Nikki, whatever you call me. I'm used to it. I don't like the music, but it's not your music. My mother, who was a nice lady, did not, she is, I like her. My mother did not like Little Richard. Tutti Frutti, Ah Rudy? No way. She thought he was vulgar. But let me take you one step more, because these are the wars that I remember. My grandmother thought that Billy Eckstine was obscene. Because jelly stays on my mind. Jelly Roll killed my papa, drove my mama stone blind. If that ain't dirty, what is? So my grandmother didn't like my mother. And I remember these fights. I remember Billy Eckstine, because I loved him, sang a song, said, what's my name? Because I love you, some people call me fool. What's my name? And my grandmother didn't like that, and she would say, any fool knows what his mammy calls him, because she was upset. Billy has gone on to be classic, as we all know. We all think that Billy Eckstine is wonderful. Little Richard, thank God, has outlived everybody that thought he would be dead, and he's still, oh yeah. No, I love Little Richard. He's gonna live forever. And he's still suing Disney, as well he should, because Donald Duck sang Tutti Frutti, and they haven't paid him for it yet, because they kept thinking he would die. That's the truth. There's nothing wrong with the music. And one day, you and I will be sitting here, and Nikki the Third or whatever will be standing up on stage, Sister Soldier, something like that, and she'll be saying Tupac is a classic. And everybody will say, oh, I remember something about it. So I mentioned that young warrior. I did before he died, and I'm doing it now. Somebody said Tupac isn't dead. That's what the kids are all saying, which means that he's not. He can't be dead as long as we love and remember him. Nobody is dead. We know that Jesus rose. We know that he did because if no other reason, 2,000 years later, we're still finding comfort. So we don't have to debate what really happened that Sunday morning because we know what happened. He lives in our hearts. That's the truth. We all live because somebody cares about us. And it is a heartbreaker to see these young men be shot down and then to watch everybody want to act like they deserved it. I wrote a poem for that young man because I was upset. It's called All Eyes on You, because it's not right. As I tossed and turned, unable to achieve sleep, unable to control anxiety, unable to comprehend why, Tupac is not with us. If those who lived by the sword died by the sword, there would be no white men on earth. If those who lived on hatred died on hatred, there would be no KKK. If those who lived by lies died by lies, there would be nobody on Wall Street, in executive suites, in academic offices instructing the young. Don't tell me he got what he deserved. He deserves a chariot and the accolades of a grateful people. He deserves his life. It is as clear as a mountain stream, as defining as a lightning strike, as terrifying as the sun of vampires. Tupac told the truth. There were those who called it dirty, gangster rap, inciting. There were those who never wanted to be angry at the conditions, but angry at the messenger who reported. Your kitchen has roaches, your toilet is overflowing, your basement has so much water the rats are in the living room, your house is in disorder. And Tupac told you about it. What a beautiful boy. Graceful carriage, melodic voice, sharp wit, intellectual breath. What a beautiful boy to lose. Not me, never me. I do not believe East Coast, West Coast. I saw them murder Emmett Till. I saw them murder Malcolm X. I saw them murder Martin Luther King. I witnessed them shooting Rap Brown. I saw them beat Leroy Jones. I saw them fill their jails. I see them burning churches. Not me. Never me. I do not believe this is some sort of mouth action. This is some sort of political action. And they picked well. They picked the brightest, freshest fruit from the tallest tree. What a beautiful boy. But he will not go away. As Malcolm did not go away, as Emmett Till did not go away, your shooting him will not take him from us. His spirit will fill our hearts. His courage will strengthen us for the challenge. His truth will strengthen our backbones. You know, Socrates had a mother. She too watched her son drink hemlock. She too asked why. But Socrates stood firm and would not lie to save himself. Tupac has a mother. The lovely Afeni has to bury her son. It is not right. It is not right that this young warrior is cut down. It is not right for the old to bury the young. It is not right. This generation mourns Tupac as my generation mourned Till, as we all mourn Malcolm, this wonderful young warrior. Sonia Sanchez said when she learned of his passing, she walked all day, walking the beautiful warrior home to our ancestors. I just cried, as all mothers cry, for the beautiful boy who said he and Mike Tyson would never be allowed to be free at the same time, who told the truth about them and who told the truth about us, who was our beautiful warrior. There are those who wanted to make him the problem, who wanted to believe if they silenced Tupac, all would be quiet on the ghetto front. There are those who testified that the problem wasn't the conditions, but the people talking about them. They took away bands, so the boys started scratching. They took away gyms, so the boys started breakdancing. The boys started rapping because they gave them the guns and the drugs, but not the schools and the libraries. What a beautiful boy to lose. And we mourn Tupac Shakur, and we reach out to his mother, and we hug ourselves in sadness and in shame, and we are compelled to ask, are you happy, Miss Tucker? Tupac is dead. Are you happy? Somebody said it was a mean poem. It's not a mean poem. I mean, I didn't mean for it to be a mean poem. It's just, it makes you mad. And it makes you mad. My son is 27, and Tupac is 25, and Biggie's, what, 24? And you start to think about it. I just don't know. And then I'm going to let it go. But I just don't know what I would do if I had to pick up the phone and somebody tell me my baby's dead. And to have to hear that is unacceptable, but then some other fool to turn around and say, but he got what he deserved. I don't think so. I think something is wrong. And so all we offer each other, I think, is comfort. That's all that any civilized people can do. And if this country, and this is not Nikki's thing on this country right now, but if this country is going to move into some kind of reasonable direction, we know that we have to move into a level of comfort. We know that we have to be able to reach out to each other and to say, how may I help? Because everybody wants to turn around and say, well, it's his fault, it's her fault, it's their fault, and they shouldn't have. I have. I do not now, I hope have. I have had a cancerous tumor in my left lung. I'm very fortunate because you know lung tumors generally are fast growing and you generally are dead. And I have passed the 2-year mark, and I'm really glad because I think it's nice to be alive and I recommend it. And I do. But it was just kind of strange to me because I was talking to somebody recently. And of course, what people say is really dumb things like, how did you get it? You know, I tell you what I told them, then I won't get invited back to Cleveland. I said, I the Kroger's. What do you mean, where'd I get it? Obviously, I bought it. I went to the local store. I mean, what do you mean? What kind of sense is that? But we know people that have HIV, and somebody will sit there and debate they're HIV positive. I wonder how he got it. He bought it. 7-Eleven. What kind of sense does that make? When what you really mean to say is, I'm sorry. That's what we all are. I watch these young women, because I have a kid, I like him. I have a kid and a dog and a mother. I like all of them. I do recommend mothers. I think mothers are important, but I do not recommend kids and dogs. They are not for everybody. And everybody that doesn't want one, in my opinion, and this is not Nikki fighting that abortion war, shouldn't have one. What is this big deal? These children find themselves pregnant. If they wanted to know what I would have thought, they would have called me up and said, Miss Giovanni, hi, this is Susan. I'm thinking about having sex tonight. What do you think? And I would say, well, Sue, I'm going to recommend against that because, right? And then we'd hang up, and that's it. They didn't call me on the front end of this. So they shouldn't have to call me on the back end. Girl, you see what I'm saying? She has a problem. And the problem at that point is not my problem, and it's not your problem. The problem is that she has a problem. And if she identifies it as I want to have the baby or I don't want to have the baby, my job as a civilized human being is simply to ask, how can I help? My job is not to say what you shouldn't have done, who you shouldn't have done it with, why you shouldn't have protected yourself, not protected. My job is none of that. This child has come to us and said, I need help. If she asked me for advice, my advice is, what would you like? Because I know if she wanted to know what I thought, she would have called me when she decided to have sex. If my opinion mattered, it mattered at the beginning. It doesn't matter. You and I don't want to admit that sometimes our opinion doesn't matter. Sometimes we actually don't get a choice. And what we do as civilized human beings is to reach out and say, baby, how can I help? A lot of us in this room, and a lot of us in this country call themselves Christian. A lot of us call themselves believers, get up and go to church and shout on Sunday, or whatever it is Presbyterians do, or whatever they do. I know they don't shout. And yet somebody comes to us in trouble and we can't reach out our hands, and that's what you like about Jesus. He said, one, suffer little children to come unto me, but he used to hang out with Mary Magdalene and them. And people said, you know, what kind of guys is hanging out with those loose women? He said, I'm hanging out with people who need me. And I like that about him because he got old Nicodemus, didn't he? And it wasn't just the arrogance of a rich man, because he told him, rich man has about as much chance of getting to heaven as a camel does going through a needle's eye. Nicodemus was upset about that, but Jesus told him, you got to be born again. And Nicodemus is going to be smart with Jesus. He said, what do you mean, Lord? You know, Jesus didn't have that kind of sense of humor. He's just like, what did I say, Nicodemus? No, it's not hard. It's not hard. But it bothers me that I watched our Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, run around. No, I'm sick of Newt. I watch him. No, he's going to steal everything that he wants. He's not going to pay taxes on it. And then he's going to crap on some poor woman that has a couple of children, which every woman in this room that's ever had a child, every woman in this room that's ever had a child knows very well that there is nothing on earth that would make you have a baby so that you can increase your check $50 to $75 a month. There's not a woman on earth. Every now and then you read that somebody for $10,000 or so sold a baby, and even they have problems. Nobody's going to have some child so that they can increase their welfare check, and that's an insult to those of us who have laid down our lives to bring these children into the world, because there's no pain more excruciating than having a baby. It is not fun. It is not fun while you're carrying them, and your friends lie, and you know they lying. You know it. They do. Because I tell you crap like, oh, you look so beautiful. You have a glow. What you are is puffed up. You ain't got no glow. You just sitting there trying to make it. Your ankles are swollen. You can't sleep on your side or your stomach. If you sleep on your stomach, you like that. And all you have to look forward to at the end of these 9 months is the worst pain you've ever had in your life. And when you get over that, you get something that cannot talk, cannot. That's all you get. Right? And your friends do a wonderful thing, because that's what friends are for. They come in and say things to you like, oh, your son is so pretty and he's smart too, I can tell. Because we're just trying to make you feel better. You're this little dumb thing is struggling, you can't hold his head up. You're trying to feed it, right? You're trying to take care of it, you're trying to pull yourself together, and we want to act like somebody's doing that for money. That's love. And if you don't know the difference between love and money, there's something wrong with you. But I want to say this about America. No, that's the truth. You got to know the difference. I'm always fascinated because your friends do this for you. Because when the baby's born, after all you've gone through, we come over and we babysit. We say, girl, you need to get out. You need to go get your hair done. You need to do something. I'll keep the baby for you. We feed it. We change its diaper. We do all of those things for it. It still has no teeth, no hair, right? Cannot control its urine or its feces. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't actually respond when you talk to it. And it's very funny to me because we all kick in when it's your mother, when it's your baby. But when it's your mother, 90 years old, who is in the same condition, she's kind of bald, doesn't quite hear well, needs some help in getting food, needs some help in making sure that she can take care of her own personal needs. Nobody comes over and says, I want to sit with your mother. I think she's so wonderful. Nobody comes over and says, I really like being with the older people in your family. Let me sit with them for an hour or so while you go out and do something else. Let me participate as a friend to you. If we do it for the babies, we ought to do it for the old people. We should. We should. It's all the same thing. It's all about love. And what it is the old people, we're scared that we're going to get old. That's all it is. But if we're lucky, we will get old. I've always thought it was stupid when you hear those people talking about, I want to die young so I'll make a beautiful corpse. All corpse looks. I used to hear that. All corpse look the same. I want to live a long time. Me and Sadie Alexander and them, right? I want Sadie Delaney. I want to live a long time. I think it'd be fun. First of all, the kids owe us. They do. We took care of them. They do. They do. And the same cheer that we brought to their experience, they need to bring to ours. We don't want to hear that they're too busy to talk to us. They're too busy to stop and spend some time with us. We spent time with them, and they were no more interesting. They weren't. They think they were, but they weren't. I wrote a poem because I'm a huge fan of the black woman. I always recommend her. I always think if you're having a bad day and things are just really not going well, you can just say to yourself, I'm a black woman. And it just cheers you up. And the reason it does, it just makes your day. The reason I like being black as opposed to being anything else, and I'm not having any quarrel with African American or anything like that. I don't have a quarrel. But the reason I like black is that everybody in this room can be black. All you have to do is say it. Doesn't matter what you look like. And the most that will happen is somebody say, girl, well, she didn't look black, did she? That's the end of it. That's the end of it. That's the end of it, because nobody's going to say it unless they are, and we're going to accept it. I've always recommended, because I'm a huge space fan, I've always recommended to aliens, if they're always saying it's true, if there's an alien in the sound of my voice, and it's wondering where to land, because, they're always in those B movies. I always have the aliens landing in something like West Virginia. Why would you do that? Right outside of Charleston, right? Places like that, and it's always, you see the, spaceship comes down, the lights are on and everything, and the sort of dim-witted son, who, Paul? That's what he always, Paul, there's something out there. And the father's coming, putting his suspenders on, get the rifle, son. And you think, what kind of sense does that make, right? First of all, if you got a spaceship and you can land any place, probably first choice is Venice, second choice Paris. You don't even do the United States. But if you're going to do the United States, I'm always going to recommend the black community. Sure, because we're the ones that, did you see that space, that flying saucer? I said, yeah, man, I thought I saw that. I wonder who's there. He said, oh, let's go ask. Black community, as you know, is casual, Hey, man, where are you from, Black community's casual, We are. Oh, yeah, he's a brother from Jupiter. Give him a beer. No, we're friendly, and I like that. Anybody come in our community is like, okay, you know, make yourself at home. Buy the first beer. I don't know about the second. I like us for that. I wrote a poem for the black woman because I think she is wonderful. And I think if everybody could choose, I would suggest that we choose her because she's the one. It's true, and it's such an amazement to me at times. When you think about it, I wrote a poem in the new book called The Only True Lovers Are Chefs. But when you think about just the fact, and I'm not saying that white women don't cook, don't misunderstand, but when you think about just the fact that black women have to get up having practically nothing, and whatever it is, they have to cook it and make it all right, so you can see the first black woman with chitlins. I mean, you can see the problem, can't you? Because she got this bucket and she brings it back to her girlfriend and said, girl, what you got there? So I don't know, it called chitlin. So what you gonna do with it? I said, I guess I'll wash it. What else could you do with it? It's dirty. Well, how long you gonna wash it? I guess till it's clean. Who would know what to do with chitlins? So if you're a slave, which they were, they obviously washed it, put it on, put whatever spices they had. So I got to go to the field, girl. I can't fool around with this stuff no more. And went. And it cooked all day. When they came in, somebody said, we had Tabasco sauce. This might not be bad. You got to give them credit, because only a black woman could have saved chitlins. Everybody else been trying to bread them and fry them and stuff. Stuff them up. No, only a black woman could figure out what. I like us for that. We got that rotten fruit that nobody else wanted, cut it out and made ourselves cobblers. We got leftover pieces of material and made ourselves a quilt, and it's called folk art now, and it sells for thousands. No, I like black women because we can do anything. There's no way to keep us down. I do. We can do anything. It's true. I wrote a poem called Stardate, 18628.190. Yeah, because we got to go into the future. I don't care what any of these other Star Wars things say. If there's a future, the black woman has to be there. This is not a poem. This is hot chocolate at the beginning of spring, topped with hand-whipped double cream. A splash of brandy to give it sass, and just a little cinnamon to give it class. This is not a poem. This is a summer quilt, log cabin pattern. See that corner piece? That was grandmother's wedding dress. That was grandpapa's favorite Sunday tie. That white strip there is the baby who died. Mama had pneumonia, so the red flannel shows the healing. This does not hang from museum walls, nor will it sell for thousands. This is here to keep me warm. This is not a sonnet, though it will sing, precious Lord, take my hand. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Go down, Moses, way down to the past, way up to the future. It will swell with the voice of Marian Anderson, lilt on the arias of Leontine, dance on the trillings of battle, do the dirty dirty with Bessie, moan with Dinah Washington, rock and roll through the 60s, rap its way into the 90s, and go on into space with Etta James saying, at last. No, this is not a sonnet, but the truth of the beauty that the only authentic voice of planet Earth comes from the black soil tilled and mined by the daughters of diaspora. This is a rocking chair, rock me gently in the bosom of Abraham. This is a bus seat, no, I'm not going to move today. This is a porch where they sat spitting at fireflies, telling young Alex the story of the African. This is a hook rug to cover a dirt floor. This is an iron pot with leftover vegetables, making a slow-cooking soup. This is pork simmering chitlins, surprising everybody with our ability to make a way out of no way. This is not rest when we are weary, nor comfort when we are sad. It is laughter when we are in pain. It is never mind when we are confused. It is keep climbing, child, when the road takes the unfair turn. It is don't let nobody turn you around when our way is dark. It is the faith of our mothers who plaited our hair, put Vaseline on our faces, polished our rundown shoes, patched our dresses, wore sweaters so that we could wear coats, who welcomed us and our children when we were left alone to rear them, who said, get your education, and nobody can put you back. This is not a poem, no. It is a celebration of the road we have traveled. It is a prayer for the roads yet to come. This is an explosion, the original Big Bang that makes the world a hopeful, loving place. This is the black woman. And all our trouble and glory, and all our past history and future forbearance, and all that ever made love a possibility, this is about us. Bleached and natural, braided and straightened hair, made up or beaten up faces, tall, short, stately bent, CC riders, junkies, whores, wives, mothers, grandmothers, aunts, working in the home or outside, working in the system or outside, working, praying, working to survive, giving pride, giving succor, giving voice, giving encouragement, giving whatever we can give. This is a flag that we placed over Peter Salem and Peter Poor, the 54th Regiment from Massachusetts, all the men and women lynched in the name of rape. Emmett Till, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr. This is a banner we fly for respect, dignity, the assumption of integrity, for a future generation to rally around. This is about us, celebrating ourselves, and a well-deserved honor it is. Light the candles, this is a rocket. Let's ride. I really like that poem, so thank you. I guess, I probably won't read any I don't really like, but I really did like that, because I like the this is for those of you who it's like you're not allowed to do that. If you're a writer, you just can't run this is like that. And I've been really having a lot of fun because this and that. And I don't know, Sesame Street's still on, because my kid grew up, we were looking at Sesame Street. And I really liked Sesame Street, I always did. And he would do that here and there. And we lived in New York at that point, and we would go like to the corner in New York, you go get your paper. We lived in Manhattan. I'm not talking about the other boroughs. Manhattan is New York, the rest of those places someplace else. And we would go to get the papers, and he would say, "Mommy, I'm here." And then he would run. I'd say, "No, you're there." And then he would run. And we would do the same thing with this and that. And it's really fun to play word games with children. I just saw an old friend named Gloria Billups. And I just saw Gloria, hadn't seen Gloria since like old days in Lincoln Heights. And it's really funny. And I don't know if Gloria remembers, and I meant to ask her, but I have a friend named Johnita Fletcher. And Johnita's name is now Lackey. And I hated that women get married because you can never, I don't mind you getting married, but it's so hard to remember. You go to town, you want to look up a girlfriend, you can't remember her name, you don't know if it's hyphenated, if it's not, and so you just end up being unfriendly. You just say you're not. But I wrote this poem because I'm a baby in the family, and for all of you who are big sisters, we get you in the end. I just thought I'd mention that. Because big sisters always get the telephone, big sisters always get the clothes first, right? And your mother does really sly things. You don't realize how sly your mother is until she looks at you in late August and says, "Wow, I think you've grown into this coat." And it takes you a minute before you realize you're not getting a new coat. You're going to be wearing your sister's old coat again. And, of course, you don't get to talk on the phone until your sister starts dating. And so all the babies in the house, you all know, we just sat around and just prayed that our sisters would finally find somebody to take them out so that we could talk to our girlfriends. And I wrote a poem. That's the truth. It's not that we dislike you all. It's just you hogged everything. You did. And then you were messy. It's very seldom anybody's going to tell you that their big sister was a neat person. Babies are neat. Big sister just mess things up and leave it for us. And then threaten to beat us up if we don't clean up after them. Ultimately, we win because we grow bigger and stronger. I wrote a telephone poem because it's a girlfriend poem, since I was reading poems. But this is a girlfriend poem because you know how you would talk to your girlfriend, and I'm sure in these days now, I'm proud to be 53. But in these days, like nowadays, everybody's got phones and you've got lines. And so you can actually be in your bedroom, and this is what my kid faced, and he's in his bedroom, and you can look at your phone and know if he's on the phone or not because the line is lit up red. But when I was growing up, well, her throat was brown. I carried, this is good graders. This is not cheap branches. This is graders. And for those of you who are grater fans in Cincinnati, graders makes the best, well, they really do the best candy, but the best peppermint. And I just thought since she was coughing, and I carried around by the pound, so I was just trying to be responsive to my audience needs. But when I was growing up, it was a black phone. And the black phone had a long wire, but there was only one phone in the house. Actually, you couldn't cradle it because it had that hard edge, so you had to hold it. But once your sister was gone, you could get on the phone with your girlfriends, right? And you would be on the phone. Half the time you would fall asleep because you would know you were tired, and you'd say, "Well, hang up." And she would say, "No, you hang up first." And so you'd end up falling asleep. I'm sure many a night my mother came in on the weekend and hung the phone up because Johnita had fallen asleep, and so probably had I. And I wanted to share, it's a poem called Telephone Poem. Cans and strings and backyard trees, giggles coming through the wire. Summer mud pies, lemonade stands. Hang up. No, you hang up first. Potatoes must be piled mild high. Then you add the leaves. Daddies always light the fires. Hang up. No, you hang up first. Marriage, ambition, children, jobs. Marriage, children, divorce, jobs. Ambitions eat our days away. Girl, I miss our silly times. Hang up. No, you hang up first. I like that. Thank you. I was born in the Congo. I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed a pyramid so tough that a star that only glows every 100 years falls into the center, giving divine, perfect light. I am bad. I sat on the throne drinking nectar with Allah. I got hot and sent an ice age to Europe to cool my thirst. My oldest daughter is Nefertiti. The tears from my birth pains created the Nile. I am a beautiful woman. I gazed on the forest and burned out the Sahara Desert. With a packet of goat's meat and a change of clothes, I crossed it in 2 hours. I'm a gazelle, so swift, you can't catch me. For a birthday present when he was 3, I gave my son Hannibal an elephant. He gave me Rome for Mother's Day. My strength flows ever on. My son Noah built Newark, and I stood proudly at the helm as we sailed on a soft summer day. I turned myself into myself and was Jesus. Men intoned my loving name. All praises, all praises. I am the one who would save. I sowed diamonds in my backyard. My bowels deliver uranium. The filings from my fingernails are semi-precious jewels. On a trip north, I caught a cold and blew my nose, giving oil to the Arab world. I am so hip, even my errors are correct. I sailed west to reach east and had to round off the earth as I went. The hair from my head thinned and gold was laid across 3 continents. I am so perfect, so divine, so ethereal, so surreal, I cannot be comprehended except by my permission. I mean, I can fly like a bird in the sky. I don't want you all to think that I'm, cynical or anything like that, but I am going to read a couple of love poems, and I think it's fun to fall in love, and I don't, necessarily recommend or not recommend, but I think falling in love is okay as long as you don't take it too seriously. And I think most people just take it too seriously. Are you going to love me forever? Well, what's forever? Nothing's forever, and it would be really totally boring. What you have to do is find that point just before it gets to be bad. Right? There should be some way to do that. I've been working on it. I was a history major, but I'm always on the sociology majors that I know, because you all are always doing studies and figuring out how things should do. And I know somebody can figure out how 2 people can come together, figure out how long they should stay together and get broken up. I suggest a machine. I do. I just think we need some level of machine, because actually most of what we are, we already are. Even though we like to think that we are not, we really are. And so if we just knew a couple of things about you, like how you take your coffee, how your parents voted, some things like that, we would be able to figure out how long you could stay with anybody. Then you just put yours, using your, say, social security number. Put it in a machine. He would put it in a machine, yank, and the machine would come back. You now have 72 hours to be in love. And sure. It would work, don't you think? I think it would work simply because, one, it makes sense. Therefore, you wouldn't go beyond that point that you aren't still happy. So you could see each other. You walk down the street, because now people live together 10, 15 years. Walk down the street, won't even speak to each other. If we had the machine in charge, then they could walk down the street and she could look at him, you're the best. And he could go like, wow, I know I'm the best, but that machine, it wouldn't let us be together no more, And so everybody's got, you see what I'm saying? Then everybody's intact instead of all of this ugliness that we have. Also, I have a problem, and I don't want you to think I'm cynical, because I know what's coming up. This is March, so I know people right now are starting not to answer their phones because you know that your girlfriends are getting married in June. And you are so afraid that you're going to be asked to be a bridesmaid or a maid of honor, and you have to spend all of this money on this putrid-colored dress that you will never in life have any occasion to wear again, right? And you don't want to tell her you don't want to do it, but on the other hand, you are running from her. Everybody's like, oh, I got to go, And we know that. We know that friends of ours are going to get married, and that we're going to sit there and we're going to handicap the marriage. And people are going to get together and going to say, girl, what you getting them? Because I don't know, it ain't going to last. And so, it's true. So everybody's going to get him these little cheap toasters and these little electric ovens and things that they can't possibly use because we figure, why should we be in debt for something when they're broken up, right? So my solution to all of that, and it just does make sense though nobody listens to me, my solution is forget the wedding. It's illogical anyway. People that want to be together should just be together, send out a little note, John and Keisha are together. That's it. It saves everybody money, it's no problem. Because the rest of us are standing around eating really cheap food, debating how bad the wedding was last week. I mean, nobody wants to be bothered. Where you need your friends is the divorce. That's what really hurts. You get ready to break up, and we have no rituals for people coming together to congratulate you. If we don't congratulate you on your divorce, you tend to kill each other or to beat each other up or really ugly things. So if we had the divorce party instead of the wedding party, it would make such sense. John and Keisha cordially invite you to their divorce, you see? But now, because they have been married for a while and they know what the real world is all about, instead of registering for crystal and crap that they're never going to use, they now register at Ace Hardware. It makes sense. And then people like me, who are not necessarily cheap, but just, I earn my living. We would then turn around and say, what you want to get them? Say, let's get them to riding more, because now the John's not going to be there, she's going to need some help. It's true. It makes sense. Then you end up building up two households. As John and Keisha are breaking up, they get to say, babe, the marriage didn't last, but that was a hell of a fine divorce party. They have something to be proud of. All of their friends go out and say, that was really good what you did. And everybody lives happily ever after. You see, but nobody will listen to me. So I don't understand why. I wrote a love poem, but I thought I'd better read the breakup poem first, because you will think I'm cynical if I end it on a breakup poem. So I wrote a little breakup poem called You Were Gone. You were gone, like a fly lighting on that wall with a spider in the corner. You were gone. Like last week's paycheck for this week's bills. You were gone. Like the years between 25 and 30, as if somehow you never existed. And if it wouldn't be for the gray hairs, I would never know you had come. Fair enough. And on a more positive note, for those of you who are writers, always get the poem though. Whatever you're doing, always get it down, write it down. This is what it is. If it's a trail, we can hike it. If it has two wheels, we can bike it. If it's an allergy, we can sneeze it. If it's a pimple, we can squeeze it. If it's dew, it covers Dixie. If it's Tinkerbell, it's a pixie. If it's a breeze, it can blow us. If it's the sun, it can know us. If it's a song, we can sing it. If it flies, let's wing it. If it's soda pop, then it's drinkable. It might be X-rated, but that's unthinkable. If it's a boat, we can sail it. If it's a letter, we can mail it. If it's a star, we can let it shine. If it's the moon, it can make you mine. If it's grass, we can rake it. If it's free, why not take it? If it's a tide, it can ebb. If it's a spider, it can web. If it's chocolate, we can dip it. If it's a golf ball, we can chip it. If it's gum, we can chew it. I hope it's love, so we can do it. I like that. So I like that one too. Thank you. I'm wearing my Million Man March cap. Thank you. Because I either wear this one or I have a leather Delta cap, and it's so nice. I saw said it was going to rain, and so I didn't want to get it messed up. But I have on my Million Man March cap because I'm a big fan of the Million Man March. I thought it was a wonderful thing. I mentioned earlier, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. I just think it's so terribly difficult to be a black person, and I know it's terribly difficult to be a black man. And I think it's so. I thought it was so unfair that all it was, people said, and it was Louis, you have to give Louis Farrakhan credit, but Louis Farrakhan said, yeah, you have to give him credit. He organized it. I mean, nobody would come to Washington because I said, right? And nobody would come to Washington because a lot of people said, you have to give him credit. But it was a good thing because what black men did, I think, and just coming together was to say, one, we want to raise our tolerance, we want to show that we can raise our tolerance for each other. So that's why I don't believe a lot of things, because we had 1 million, though the Parks Department said, what was it, 5 men. I mean, the Parks Department can't count. But they can't. We had 1 million men on the mall or someplace very close to it. And there was no crime, there were no fights, there was no breaking out. And one of my favorite signs was the one that said, "He is heavy, but he's still my brother." I just love that, and I saw that just touched me. My son went. I stayed home, not necessarily because I was asked to stay home, but because it seemed to me that sometimes it doesn't hurt to support people. The women were in Peking recently. The women were over in Nairobi. None of the men were jumping around like crazy saying, "Why can't we go?" And I just didn't understand. That's true. And I just didn't understand some of those women sitting on TV talking about, I don't think it's inclusive. It wasn't intended to be inclusive. It was called the Million Man March. That's not hard. That's not hard. So I stayed home and I fried chicken and I cried because I cry easily and I try to control it. I always blame it on my blood pressure. And for those of you who take blood pressure pills, which I do, you know that, if you do that, it depresses you. So if you put a low pressure in on top of that, you cry all the time. It's not like you're sad, it's just you cry. And you do. I mean, anything, you don't eat all your breakfast. "Oh, I'm so sorry. It all kind of gets next to you. But I wrote a poem for the Million Man March because I thought it was just singularly a significant event, and I was so happy. I am a big fan of heroes, period. I know I'm a throwback somehow because everybody talks about the anti-hero and everybody says it doesn't matter. I still believe that it matters what an individual person does. And I still know, I'm old enough to know, that it is very difficult for one person to try to do what he or she thinks is the right thing. Crowds do a lot of things. We know that. I mean, that's Psych 101. You can get crowds to do crazy things. You can get crowds to do things that are embarrassing. You can also get crowds to do some really wonderful things, but mostly when we think about crowds, we don't like it. And when I was thinking about this, I was not thinking, I live in Virginia, I live in the western part of the state. I live in Blacksburg. And so I was thinking about the people from my area over, because if you lived in the Baltimore-Washington Beltway, in all fairness to all of the brothers in the Baltimore-Washington Beltway area, all the way down to Norfolk, they knew when they pulled out of their driveway that somebody would be on that mall with them. They didn't have to worry about that. But the brother who left in Cincinnati, Ohio, or from St. Louis, did not know what he would face. And I wrote a poem because he was a hero to me, and it makes me cry because heroes make me cry. But it's a wonderful thing, and yeah, this is a love poem. It's not that I don't respect the brother in Baltimore, Washington, or even some parts of Northern Virginia, because I do. It's just that this is different. The brother who had to wake up before dawn, get into a car that may or may not need a new muffler, a new set of spark plugs, some attention to the motor, but who decided nevertheless, yes, he had to heed the call to go to Washington, D.C. That's the brother I want to talk about. Not at all, please understand, that I don't have a high regard for the brother who got on the bus. Getting on buses has always been a central revolutionary act of Black America. Just ask Plessy or Parks. No. Getting on a bus is an act of responsibility, an act of bravery, an act of commitment to change. But the brother who rose from his warm bed, who had to make his own coffee because his wife pretended to be asleep because she was scared he might not come back alive, and she didn't want to let him see her fear in her eyes because she knew that he needed to go even if he wouldn't come back alive. That's the brother I want to talk about here. I want to talk about the young brother who just doesn't understand why everything he tries to do, no matter how hard he tries, never seems to come out right. How if he goes bowling and gets 9 pins, the 10th pin would just stand there mocking the ball headed for the gutter. How if he bumps into somebody on the street and says a simple "I'm sorry," somebody else would jump in his face, but if he didn't say anything, then somebody would say he was uncouth. And how sometimes people would even deliberately run into him, so he joined with other people like him. And instead of calling it a benevolent society or a brotherhood or something wonderful and romantic like Elks and Masons and Lions or Rotarians, they call it a gang, indicating it was a nest of vipers, and terms like that indicating things we find dirty and unacceptable. How when 4 or 5 white boys rape a mentally handicapped girl, they are just exercising bad judgment, but when 4 or 5 black boys rape a jogger, they are all animals, and this is not for any brother who rapes any female, and it's not for anyone who harms women or other vulnerable life forms. But just a word or two about the black boys who don't understand why everything they ever try to do just never seems to come out right. And I think, well, yes, of course. Why wouldn't they cry themselves to sleep when all they want and want to be they already know is denied them? Why wouldn't they be afraid of the dark? Why wouldn't their hearts be broken when the people they love, mothers, fathers, Aunts, uncles, girlfriends, good buddies, teachers, preachers, all turn out to be untrue. And please don't tell me that basketball and baseball and football aren't the way to go, that they should get their education, when their education will only tell them to get a talent. Because the people who get up, if not out of these cesspools we call the inner city, have something more than a high school degree behind them. And you have to be some kind of a real fool not to see that they see who makes the money and who doesn't. This is for the brother, however, who does indeed believe there can be and should be and must be a change. It's not that I'm in any way unhappy about the brother who has a fine home, a car that is always serviced on time, a job with health benefits, a pretty wife, happy, smart children, a dog that obeys. I'm proud. I'm proud and happy for him and his, because I know a people cannot do better unless individuals do better. But this is about the brother who stands on the street corner singing 5-part a cappella harmony, and the brother who does breakdancing under the street lights, and the brothers who created rap because the music class is away, so the brothers scratched and they invented CDs, so the brothers rapped, then they said rap is an enemy of women, as if Bob Dole and Rush Limbaugh and self-satisfied Republicans with bumper sticker mentalities don't exist. So this is for the brother who is simply trying to find a tone to soothe his soul, while everybody wants to make him the reason America is off track. And this is about the brother who, knowing he is a better person than even he thinks he is, got in his car in Detroit or Cincinnati or St. Louis and headed for Washington, not knowing if he would be the only brother to show up for the Day of Atonement, but knowing if he was the only brother, then on this day, at this time, he would be the brother to stand and say to himself, his brothers, and the folks whom he loves and who loves him, I am sorry that things are not different. And that's a mighty powerful thing to say, because people want to make you make miracles, when all any of us can say is, I wish it would be different. But this is for the brother who was willing to be the only brother, so that there would be laughter as he stood on the mall, alone on the mall. He still said, I will stand today, because it doesn't matter if I'm alone. I need to stand and testify. And yeah, this is a love poem for that brother who decided for this one point in time, I will be my better self. And we are all so very proud of you. Sound. And you have to remember that the first time we had a city sound, we had it from Gamble and Huff, because they had the Philly sound. And for those of you who follow that, we know that the Motown sound, your neighbor right up here, really came because Motown said, what are they doing in Philly? And they came down, they did. They came down to find out what it is that they pulled together. So the Motown sound, and being just a little smoother in many respects, and I have no quarrel with the Motown sound, but it's going to be, Gamble and Huff was going to sing songs like I'll Always Love My Mama. And you're not going to get that from the Motown. You're just not. And the Motown don't want to take a chance on offending somebody who don't like their mama or something. But they would. And it's Gamble and Huff is going to talk about that love train, get on board, the love train, right? But they also, because they're honest people, going to talk about them backstabbers, what they do. Hey, they smile in your face. Oh, yeah. And so I wanted to write a poem for Gamble and Huff, because Sony is recently just coming out with their box, the Gamble and Huff box set. And I'm really very proud to have been invited to do the liner notes for it, because I just thought, well, I really love them. I always did love them. And it seemed to me like when Gamble and Huff ruled, that was the beginning of the revolution. You know, you could put your radio on like WDAS. You could put your radio on like 95.8 and go all the way across the country, just hear the best music in the world. You go from Philly, from Butterball in Philly to Larry Dean over and Rufus over in Memphis, you know, just go all the way. I mean, it was so wonderful. So I wrote a poem called When Gamble and Huff Ruled. That's when to be hot was cool, to care was correct, to be involved was without examination or explanation, because it was just the right thing to do, to creatively express yourself while knowing who you and your people are. That's when everybody was young, including the world we lived in and the people who oppressed us, and everybody just kept hoping that if we all lived long enough to grow up, maybe, just maybe, we would survive racism, and maybe they would give it up, and an older world would be safer and more hopeful, and somehow younger than the young world we were living in. That's when we wore our bell-bottoms and earth shoes and afros that reached the sky, and the guys practically poured themselves into their jeans so they moved a little slower, while we had more physical mobility, so we moved quicker. And the media had begun warning black men about the dangers of loving black women, but they weren't listening to the media then. They were listening to their own hearts and the music that kept pouring out of the radio. And people kept sort of falling in love and sort of wanting to do something important. And after all, didn't all the hippies meet on South Street? And wasn't there some sort of love train pulling out? And my, oh my, look look out for those backstabbers. So we wouldn't let anybody divide us, even though sometimes your best friend was after your lady. That's when the music was for us and about us and by us, and Gambling Huff didn't take a gamble, our Huff, but righteously brought the music out of us to place it back in us. And hey, they want to talk about intruders, and I always love those brothers, because that's what we all are if other people have their way. I mean, intruders. That's when in some wild and wonderful way, we were courageous enough to still fall in love, and crazy enough not to hold back, and sensible enough not to cry when it was over, nor whine, nor beg and plead and threaten, but just find another love for another day. And even if people thought we were trite and silly, we knew we were just expressing a brand new us. And oh, you better believe the people were ready for that trainer coming. That's when we were strong and determined to change the world, and if not change it, leave it different from when we first met it, and I like black people for that. I like us for our faith and our energy and our love on our mamas and ourselves and the world and all the chances we took in trying to make everything better, which we did for some and definitely not for others. And I dislike other people for taking our music, our muse, and our rap to sell their cars and bread and toothpaste and deodorant and sneakers, but never seeming to have enough to give back to the people who created it. And that's not a huff or a gamble, but the awful truth of white America. That's when the possibility was possible, and we got into our orange Beetles and drove across country and back and rocked and rolled into a newer possibility while lassoing and harnessing and ultimately riding the night winds that bucked and resisted. But we held on, and we were right, and the possibility closed down. But the beat goes on, and the beat goes on, and the beat goes on. That's when. Yeah.
Nikki is going to do a few questions, so